Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 103, Hunting England, with special guest Matt Goodlife. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey, this is Melissa Bachman of Winchester Deadly Passion on the Sportsman's Channel. You're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey, this is Mike Adams, the Up North Journal podcast. When I'm not gunning for turkeys, hanging out in my tree stand, or running my trap line, I'm listening to the Big Buck Registry podcast. So let's turn it up and step outside with your hosts, Jay and Dusty.
Hello, fellow hunters. This is Carrie Zolka from the Wild World of Carrie Z podcast. You know, I don't always listen to other hunting podcasts, but when I do, I listen to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck podcast. Stay hunting, my friends.
Welcome to the show. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you with us listening to this show. And, of course, we can't do this show without our good friend, Dusty Phillips from Ohio. What's happening, Dusty?
Oh, man, just getting all jazzed up, thinking about whitetail hunting, thinking about being in a tree stand. It's all just a few months away, and man, Jay, I can't wait till that opportunity comes.
It really is not far. You got like 2.5 months,
right?
Thereabouts. And get this, I've got a mother hen that's living in my backyard with 8 turkey poults.
No kidding.
They've been showing up every other day or so. Kind of poke around, look around, hang out. She's protecting them in the tall grass that's behind the house. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely. You got your trail camera still out?
I do. Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Yep, it's picking up a lot of good activity over there.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of neat. Something we have not had around here in a while is a wild turkey walking around with poults. In fact, I don't think I've ever had it since I moved to this place. So just a cool experience to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, everybody's starting to see fawns, and more pictures are showing up of fawns here in Ohio, and I'm assuming that the fawns are in New Hampshire this time of year, too.
Very much so. I've seen a lot of deer kill on the highways, actually, recently, like in the last few weeks, which is not something I've seen in quite a while, and younger deer, too. But we do have and have seen pictures of fawns that are being left on various locations, and the mom will come back here and there to check on them, not far away, of course. But it is fascinating how they kind of raise their young, where they basically drop them off in a protected location, in a sense, and they hang out and they keep quiet and they don't move, and the mom shows up and they kind of greet each other and they'll hang out, but then the mom kind of disappears for a little while and doesn't really sit there with the young when they're first born.
Yeah, it's just pretty amazing that they camouflage and they're virtually scent free at that age.
Right. It's fascinating that they survive like they do, but I guess they have no smell, so predators can't smell them. And, of course, the movement is limited until the mom shows up. So I guess that kind of works.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So how would you like to go hunting in a different country?
Oh, what wouldn't you like it?
Right. And we've talked to Zach Slattery, of course, from Australia, where they have just an insane amount of feral animals to hunt. And he hunts goats and other species like you wouldn't even imagine. You can always refer back to our podcast, Hunting in Australia. But it's that time of year where I think we should explore another part of the world, Dusty.
So we're going across the pond?
Let's go across the pond.
Really?
And go directly to England.
Wow.
And see what the Goodlife is going on, specifically Matt Goodlife, who is a good friend of ours and of the Godfathers from the Up North Journal podcast, of course. And we've arranged for Matt to describe and tell us all about deer hunting in the UK. And I got to tell you, it's not what I thought it was.
Oh, I'm so interested to hear the rest of this show.
It's fascinating. So if you've never hunted in the UK, if you've never explored the UK, if you've never even read about the UK, this is the show to really get you up to speed on what kind of species are hanging out in England that might be available for you to hunt. And I guarantee it's not what you thought.
Yeah, we want it to be an informal show on a different area.
Yes.
We want to learn different areas to hunt and how they go about their hunting. And it's something that sparks our interest, and we know you as the listener is going to thoroughly enjoy hearing how they hunt. There's so many different species of deer in the UK, and it's going to be an awesome show, Jay.
Yeah. Well, let's, before we get Matt on, I just want to remind everybody that you can donate to this page. It's bigbuckregistry.com/donate. If you're a fan of the show, we could always use a little help from our friends, or you can always pledge per show at bigbuckregistry.com/pledge. So enough of that. Let's get Matt on the mic.
Let's do it.
Matt Goodlife, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
Oh, that's, you're over on the other side of the world, which means the other side of the Atlantic. So, and, we've had some guests on before from Australia, but nobody from England before. So this is a first for the Big Buck Podcast.
I see. Well, I try to do my best then.
All right. Yes. Be on your best behavior. Now, for whatever reason, whenever I talk to somebody from England, the British accent you always sound so incredibly polite and smart for some reason. What do you have to say about that when I say that to you?
Well, obviously the smart part is just a front for me. So, but I don't know. It's our way, isn't it? It's the stiff British upper lip, I suppose.
Yeah, the politeness always comes through. And is that something that you were raised with, that kind of thing?
Very much so. It's how our parents would wanted us to sound, and on, I suppose, another level is that both my sets of parents come from working on private estates.
Okay.
So you also learn to be respectful to the people you worked for. So I guess it stems from there, and my mother just wanted us to sound proper and correct.
Interesting. Well, that's an interesting concept that you don't hear every day, especially in the United States. That's I think we could probably take a lesson or two from that. That's cool. No, so you grew up in England, and what was life like growing up in England?
Probably a lot different to what it was. It is for children now. So we were very privileged in a way. Our grandfather on my mother's side was a head gardener for a large, wealthy landowner. So we were pretty much treated as their grandchildren and had the run of the estate. So we had a very privileged upbringing on living almost on a country estate and being able to walk the grounds, to hunt squirrels and vermin like that. So to me, it was a brilliant upbringing. And it's a country family as well. So we all stem from gardeners, gamekeepers, farmers, etc. So we were surrounded by wildlife.
That's fascinating. So I think in a conversation on social media at some point, we had talked about how in order to hunt game, you basically have to be part of a game preserve in a sense where the landowners preserve the game where instead of the country, the state, everybody has their own piece of property. Is that accurate? And how does that work?
Sort of. We don't have, for instance, like you have as a national hunting forests.
Okay.
So what you call state land, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. State property. Correct.
Yeah. So therefore, you can go to your local outdoor store, buy a tag, a license, etc., and then and hunt the various animals and birds that are in season at the time.
Right.
Over here, even though the government will make up the laws to govern the recreational outdoors, it is landowner controlled. So if a person wants to have a pheasant shoot on their land, that's up to them. If they want to control the deer numbers on their land, that is up to them. nothing is dictated to by the government in that sense.
Okay.
So you couldn't just walk into our local forest. We've now moved 8 miles away from there, but which was on our doorstep. It's 1,000 acres. You can't just walk into there with a shotgun and start shooting squirrels.
Interesting. And why is that?
Because that's owned by the National Trust.
Okay.
So that's actually, even though it has public access and public bridleways for horse riding and everything else, the use of firearms, etc., is down to the National Trust because it's their land. All land in England, everywhere else, is private. You may well have access for footpaths, but it doesn't mean you could hunt or shoot over it.
Interesting. Okay, so you're kind of in control of your own land.
Very much so.
And how much game preserves or game management that you want to conduct on your property is how you're going to live your way of life. So it all comes down to the landowner is what it comes down to. Is that correct?
Very much so, yeah.
Fascinating. Is that a tradition that's gone back quite a ways back in England, or is this something that is a new thing?
No, that's how it has been since time began. I mean, if you think of your ancestors, obviously came from over here.
Right.
And when they went there, they decided that they didn't want it to be landowner controlled, didn't they? They wanted the hunting not to be necessarily a privileged thing. It wanted to be to the everyday person.
Right.
So that's how a lot of your laws came about. Whereas ours have stayed traditionally that it's the landowner decides what is going on, and that doesn't matter if you have 100 acres or 100,000 acres.
So this is a generation or a tradition that goes back generation after generation to
very much so.
Long time ago. Almost. I mean, I can't help but think about when I read Robin Hood when I was a kid, and they talked about the sheriff and the sheriff's deer and how Robin was taking all the sheriff's deer out of the Sherwood Forest. It sounds like it's something similar to that, except in that case, that was more or less the king that owned the land, not the landowners.
Yes, once upon a time it was like that. Whereas, say now, it doesn't matter how much you own. If you own an acre or 1,000 acres, you decide what you do. As long as, let's say, it is legal to take a deer at that specific time, then it is down to you and the numbers you shoot. I mean, we do not have tags, licenses, or limits over here.
Okay.
So if you have 1,000 acres and say the carrying capacity for that land is 200 deer, but at the moment you've got 350, you shoot 150.
Gotcha. Okay. So you dictate your own laws on your own
Absolutely.
land.
In that, yes. As long as you go by the book for the actual, law governing the land.
Yep.
Then you're free to do whatever you like. If you don't want deer on your land, full stop, you can eradicate them.
Interesting. So what type of game species are we talking about here?
Okay, well, the UK has 6 species of deer. So we'll start from the biggest and run down to the smallest.
Okay.
So we have the red deer.
Right.
Then we have fallow. Then we have Sika. Then we have roe deer. Then we have a Chinese water deer. And at last, but not least, we have the Muntjac.
Wow. And the red deer, that's the red stag that we oftentimes see, I assume?
Yes, that's basically is your North American elk.
Yes.
Is basically, it is an American red deer.
Interesting. Okay.
Same genus.
Okay.
Just a different line of evolution.
Okay. Now, I watched a show where there was a famous chef that decided he wanted to go hunting, and they went to England and hooked up with a gamekeeper for a piece of property. I don't know whose property it was. And they actually went out into the hills and hunted a red deer. And the chef ended up shooting from not far away, 100 yards, and took out the red deer. And one of the things that they did was they said that you have to wash your face in the blood, seeing it's your first red deer. Is this a tradition that's accurate, or was that for TV?
No, there are probably still a lot of people who do that, probably more the elder generation than the younger ones. It's not something I personally believe in.
Okay, so it's just depends.
Yeah, I don't think it looks very nice. It probably gives off a nasty taste to someone who doesn't quite understand hunting and shooting. And I think there are many traditions out there that have died, and that's probably one that could also do so.
Okay, so this was probably just resurrected for television at that time.
No, it still happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I know quite a few people who've had it done.
Interesting. All right, so it does live in certain scenarios.
Oh yes, I mean I know of a head stalker who did it to a Belgian client, a lady who was totally shocked by it.
That's kind of interesting. So, when did you start hunting?
Probably from, I don't know, really, to be I was taken out pigeon or squirrel hunting with my brother. I could have been any age, 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Okay.
I mean, I started fishing at the age of 4, so it's all around you. Being a country family, it's just second nature. Part
of your way of life. It's the way your parents taught you how to live.
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see yourself living without that type of lifestyle at this point in your life?
No, never.
Okay.
No. Whether it's involved in the hunting and shooting, fishing, or whether it is conservation, habitat management, wildlife photography, no, I couldn't at all.
Okay. So you've really adopted it into your lifestyle, and it's a tradition in your family going back generations, like the whole game laws.
Very much so, yes.
Fascinating.
Yes. So we come from that sort of line, and hopefully we'll always keep it in. If not a pastime, then yeah, I'd love to see my daughter grow up and do something in those lines.
Very cool.
Congratulations on the new edition, Matt.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Dustin.
Congratulations. How's that going?
It's interesting for first timers. Eva's now about just over a month old, so yeah, there's a few sleepless nights, but that's to be expected, isn't it?
Absolutely,
very much so. So tell us about you've had this outdoor game management lifestyle pretty much your whole life because your parents introduced you to it, but you carried that on when you went to school and you studied game and deer and wildlife and fishery management at, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, De Montfort University in Lincoln.
That's right, yes.
Why did you choose to do that?
Because I was so in love with becoming a gamekeeper and game shooting that that's all I wanted to do. So that was the course I chose when I finished school at 16, and for 2 years I was, as you say, at the Montfort University in Lincoln, and I came out with a national diploma in game, deer, wildlife, and fishery management.
Interesting. What did they teach you there? What types of things were they focused on?
Well, the game shooting industry, if you say a gamekeeper, is a person employed by a large estate to produce a sporting day's shooting. And that could be from a bag limit through the day of 50 to 60, right up to the biggest day I was involved in was over 3,000. When we say and talk about pheasant or game shooting, it's very different to your release bird over there, where someone might buy a day's hunting pheasant and release 10 birds that day and then tell people to go out into a couple of fields and try and find them. These are released very early on in the year, whether they are whether you've caught the hens up yourself and the cockbirds and then produced eggs from them, hatched the eggs, reared the chicks into poult size into the age of about 8 weeks old, and then released them into big release pens, or whether you bought stock in to do it. Once they are in those release pens, which are open topped, they are free to go wherever they like. The release pen is really to keep foxes from killing them a lot of them. They become truly wild birds. When we say released, it's not quite as manufactured as it sounds. So a gamekeeper's job is to, throughout the whole year, look after them. So whether it's the rearing season in February onwards through to May, June, July, then the release of the birds, and then it's the post-care of them, and also the predator control, so shooting foxes, magpies, crows, jays, trapping rats, squirrels, etc. And then when it comes to the actual shooting season, it's producing a good day's shooting of sporting quality birds for the paying guns. And as I say, that could be anywhere from a team of 8 to a team of 12, depending on the size of the estate. And that is generally driven birds. So you are stood on pegs in front of woodland, and you have a team of beaters to drive the birds. So it's very different to your sort of walked-up pheasant shooting. Even though we do a lot of walked-up pheasant shooting here as well, the driven stuff, or pass shooting as you would call it, maybe.
Right. I've seen that on television before, where the drivers would come through with white flags almost and drive through the fields, and then the shooters would be mounted usually almost down in a valley of sorts where the birds would fly over. And there was a lot of shooting, and there were a lot of birds. And there was a lot of feasting later in the day.
Yes. So I say those days can vary on their size, how much people want to pay. Also, the quality of shooting can be dictated to the terrain that you're shooting over. So if it's fairly flat land, it might not cost as much per bird to shoot than it would be as if you were shooting across the Welsh Valleys, for instance, or down in Somerset in the south. So you could be paying anything from £25 a bird to £45 a bird. So that's a range of $30 to $70 a bird.
Per bird, okay.
Per bird, yes. That's on most commercial shoots. A lot of them might be a set price. So you might pay $400 for the day, a team of 10 guns, and you're looking to shoot maybe 100 to 150 birds.
Okay. So the price tag varies tremendously.
Yes.
Interesting. And that's just bird shoots. Now, let's talk about deer management a little bit. Talk to us and tell us about the climate and the terrain that we're talking about here that you're used to, where you hunt.
Okay. Mine is mostly open arable land with small shelter belts and small woods. And we're right on the edge of the farm that I hunt over is right on the edge of some National Trust land, which is 1,000 acres. So our population is probably dictated really by that one forest.
Okay.
On here we have fallow and muntjac, which is a pretty standard fare for most of England. We do have a few roe locally, but they're not actually on our piece of ground. When I say our piece of ground, I'm lucky enough to be friends with a farmer who has 2,500 acres. So for the last, 18 years, I suppose, I've shot over there, over his land.
Okay.
And been entrusted with the deer management.
And you're in Hertfordshire, England.
Yeah, Hertfordshire and Essex.
And that's in the southeast corner of England?
It is, yeah. We're 30 miles above London.
Okay. So in that case, that's the type of deer that you should expect to find around there. What about, where would you find the bigger deer, the red stag? Where are they located?
Head down south. We do have them in Essex, but it's more out towards the coast, out towards the east side. The lot then through Norfolk and Suffolk, again right out on that east coast. Then if you drop down into Somerset, Devon and Cornwall, which is down the bottom half of the country, is a lot through there. There's a few heading as you get northwards into Yorkshire, which is probably what you would look at the middle of the country, and then as soon as you head south and north and up into Scotland, then there's a lot of red deer.
Okay, so they're not completely scattered across England. They have their spots where they like.
They do pockets, yeah. They have very strongholds, and then they have little pockets here and there.
Okay.
Fallow are pretty much widespread. Roe are widespread. Muntjac, which are an introduced species, they are probably 2/3 of the way up the country, if not probably further now. And then the Chinese water deer are East Anglia. So again, the Essex, Norfolk and Hertfordshire areas and Bedfordshire. And then Sika, north and into Scotland, and then back down into the tip of the west coast into Dorset is their stronghold.
Okay.
So they would say our native species are red and roe.
Okay. Can you describe the roe deer for us? It's not something we're used to. I haven't done much research on it. Could you describe what the roe deer is like?
The roe deer is a cousin to the whitetail through its evolutionary process. It's a generally a 6-pointed antlered deer.
Okay.
Smaller than fallow, so weighing. Does would probably, once they're dressed out, weighing about 50 pound. Bucks maybe weighing just on the top side of 60 pound.
Okay, so it's a smaller animal compared to the whitetails that we would see in the United
very
States.
much so. Okay. Yeah, even compared to your sort of Florida whitetails.
Okay.
The roe deer has almost angled to the sky's antler. If I recall, I'm going out on a limb here. I may be saying something I really don't know nothing about, but it seems like they had like a brow tine, and then the antlers kind of angle up towards the back of the head to the sky.
That's right. Yeah, they do. They have the brow tine, and then the what would probably be the bay tine, and then the top is sweeps backwards. And a good roe buck's antlers are probably only going to be a foot to 14 inches tall.
No kidding.
Interesting.
Some a lot smaller. Some depend again, like in the US, different country and different terrain have got different qualities of mineral in the soil, so it varies across the whole UK to how big and what quality they are.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yes.
So the fallow deer, I think we're kind of familiar with. That's something that we've seen in the United States and Texas. I don't think it's necessarily indigenous to the United States by any means, but we've seen them. The roe deer, I haven't really heard much about. What are the other 4 deer that you were talking about? Can you describe some of those, and so we get a visual on what they might be like?
Yeah, well, the Muntjac, our smallest deer, have a very primitive antler, which basically just have. A big Muntjac is probably about 11 centimeters in length, his antler, and it will just have a tiny little brow tine on it, and it will just have a little curve sweeping backwards. That is it.
Okay.
They're an Asian deer that were brought over here in the probably late 1800s, and rich landowners had them in their collections.
Okay, I see.
And due to wind damage fences where trees have come down, etc., and the odd probably deliberate release, that's how we now have Muntjac, Chinese water deer, and Sika. So those 3 aren't native at all. They're all of them are Asian deer.
Okay. Are they smaller than the roe deer?
Yeah, Muntjac, a dressed out animal would probably weigh anywhere from 20 pound to 35.
Oh wow, really tiny. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant fun though in every aspect.
I would imagine that must be just an amazing hunt.
Yes. My uncle, who lives down in Dorset, had never seen Muntjac for most of his life, and when he came up here, he thought they were hares.
Right.
Because they're so small. He's used to big deer.
No kidding.
So I think they're brilliant. I think they're probably the best tasting of the venison out there. They're a difficult deer to manage because, unlike, let's say, fallow deer or your whitetail deer, when they cast their antlers and they're regrowing, the testosterone levels are so low that they would be unable to breed a doe if there was in season, because they'll be unable to produce sperm.
Really?
Whereas that goes for most deer species. Whereas Muntjac can do it even when they're in velvet, when they cast their antlers, or when they're in hard antler. The does are receptive all year round. So it makes them a very difficult deer to manage as well. I was going to say, when shooting does, you either have to shoot yearlings or you've got to shoot pregnant does. Because if you shoot a doe that's, say, being followed by a buck, she's probably just dropped a fawn. So you can only shoot yearlings or pregnant does, so you know you're not leaving dependent young.
Right.
And you can shoot all year through as well. Even though there is now recommended seasons for it, that you can shoot Muntjac all year round.
It sounds like they can reproduce all year round based off your description. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yeah, any month of the year.
Okay. So there's no...
I mean, they do favour through those traditional, let's say from late April into November, that sort of time range of the warmer weather.
Okay.
But there's nothing to come across fawns through the winter.
So because of that, they don't seem to get out of control population-wise. Like they don't dominate an area and destroy habitat.
Well, they are actually, because they're non-native. They're very difficult to control because of their size. They can live in people's gardens quite happily without being noticed. They're terrible for getting into small garden market fruit and veg. On the native fauna, they're quite bad on our orchids and various wildflowers. So at times they can be a bit of a pain. Their population, if you think they escaped probably in the 1920s, 30s, they're now widespread across the whole of the UK. So they had to first of all adapt to our climate. So they've done really quite well.
Fascinating. How long have they been in the country again? You said the mid-1800s?
Probably when they were first brought over from Asia.
Okay.
So in their original escape, their thinking is somewhere around about 1920s.
1920s.
So yeah, they're a very popular deer species. A lot of them viewed them as pests to start with, but
right.
I think that's a bit wrong. I think also because we are one of the few countries in Europe to have them, a lot of overseas mainland Europe deer hunters come over here to stalk muntjac because it's a novel thing.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about how you hunt these 6 different deer. It sounds like they're different sizes. They probably have different speeds and different habitats and different mannerisms. Are there different techniques for hunting each one?
There probably are. If you wanted to generalize, I mean, a lot of my hunting is done from what we call high seats, which is what you call a tree stand.
Right. High seats. I like it.
Because we're quite flat round here and we have a lot of public access routes, so we have what we call footpaths, using a high velocity rifle, you have to be shooting from an elevated position.
Okay.
So most of it is done from high seats. There are a few places that I can stalk on foot, which is the traditional English way of hunting deer, is what we would call stalking, deer stalking.
Right.
So it doesn't really vary a lot from what you guys do. You're playing the wind all the time, and you're thinking where they're feeding, where their travel routes are, dependent on the time of year, even dependent on what the wind direction, the temperatures are doing, and where they may or may not be sheltering from the elements. So, a lot of the things that you put into practice over there is we can pretty much do here.
All right. So basically, high seats, tree stand hunting, or stalking. Those are the types of things.
Yeah, and we can also call them as well. Some species respond very well to calls.
Calling, interesting.
Yeah. So muntjac, for instance, muntjac and roe, the bucks will come into like a doe squeak. When they are either in distress or worried about their fawn, or whether they're calling to attract a buck or a doe. Red deer stags, you can roar at them like you would bugle an elk. Sika stags whistle, and it's a triple whistle. I won't try and do it, but they're very aggressive deer, Sika. And fallow, again, grunt like your whitetail, so your whitetail grunt calls will work for them as well.
Fascinating. Very interesting. So so you can call them in, you stalk them, you hunt from high seats or tree stands, and you have a variety of deer to hunt. That's kind of interesting to me, because usually it's 1 or 2 species that you get to hunt here, or if you want to travel to the Midwest. If I'm on the East Coast, you'd have to travel to the mountain ranges of Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, to start hunting into elk and whitetail and mule deer, for example. So
yes,
maybe 3, but you've got 6 every day that you can hunt.
Yeah, if you're in the New Forest, you can shoot 5 of them. So I've got a friend who's out in Norfolk who is a professional deer stalker. You can shoot red, fallow, roe, and muntjac on his ground.
Wow, interesting.
So yeah, he often has clients out. He shoots 3 species in a day.
Now, how do they taste from species to species? Have you eaten all 6?
I haven't. No, the only one I haven't had is Chinese water deer.
Okay.
But it all depends on how they're shot, time of year, the age of the animal. But I've never had a bad muntjac. Muntjac is just absolutely beautiful. Again, along with roe. Red deer, it again depends. I mean, if you shoot a nice young hind or doe, then and it's cooked properly, then it will be lovely and tender. Whereas if you shoot a big stag in the rut, well, I'd rather go down the supermarket and buy a piece of beef.
Gotcha. So it's not unlike shot placement, time of year that you shoot. That all means a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, you can imagine what testosterone and adrenaline does with a male deer during the rut.
Sure.
It's the worst venison out.
Right. And I don't think we're immune to that either. I mean, that's the same kind of stuff we have to deal with here. So that's similar. And is there a variation in the flavor? Like, could you describe what like a roe deer would taste like?
Roe.
Let's compare it to
No.
beef, maybe.
I would. Well, I could say that muntjac would taste like lamb without the grease. If you think of lamb being slightly fatty,
yes,
and greasy, muntjac is very much like that without the fat or the grease. I mean, as you know, venison is probably the leanest meat in the world.
Right. Wow. So it's like lamb. That sounds amazing.
Succulent and tender.
Yes.
And that doesn't matter what age range. I mean, because you're talking with a deer species that only weighs fully dressed, 45, 50 pound. So even if you're shooting what you would call an adolescent or a yearling, that dressed out, it could only weigh 18 pound. So your turkey weighs as much as it.
Right.
But it doesn't matter whether it's a young beast or an old beast. They taste superb all the whole range through.
So what you're saying, Matt, is you take a piece of this and you fry it up, you put it on your forehead, your tongue will slap your brains out trying to get to it.
Yes, absolutely. I've never tried it, but yes. No, muntjac is probably my favourite. Roe is equally up there. It's, again, very sweet and tender. And then as you get into the bigger deer species, well, again, it probably is the same as, for instance, like your mule deer feeding on sagebrush. It's going to add a flavour. So depending on where you are in the country with some of the others, depending on what crops or browse they're eating, will dictate a bit to the flavour of them.
Right. Very interesting. So Matt, could you take us on a deer hunt, like just a step-by-step, like how you would go about or how you did go about on one of your more memorable deer hunts and what happened during that hunt?
Okay.
What year are we going back to?
Oh, my word. We can probably go... trouble is, they all run into one another, really, because we don't have sort of limits and tags, etc. It's not like... I've shot over 50 in a year before.
Okay.
So, and because it is generally management as well, a lot of it, you're always looking to perform a task, which is numbers. If Tom the farmer is saying, look, our wheat is being damaged in this field quite badly, can you go there? Then you're looking for that moment to take as many as you can because of the damage they're doing to crops. One of my best memories, I guess, was stalking one is a group of 4 bucks that I stalked on foot for an hour and a half through 3 or 4 ditches, 2 little fields, and I spent half an hour watching them through binoculars at 25 yards. And then once I'd made my mind up that I was only going to shoot the smaller of the lot because the other ones we don't tend to shoot the big bucks here. We try to let them go to carry on that gene pool. Okay. as your stock. The smaller one presented a shot at just as he poked his head up, so I just stuck it underneath his chin and necked him.
Gotcha. And what year was that, do you know?
Oh, God, I should think early 2000s.
Okay.
I mean, I can remember we did a deer drive once as well, where we moved them from here, there, and everywhere, really, around the farm, and had various people sitting in various high seats. And luckily, they came to me, and in 30 seconds, I shot 4 out of one group.
Gotcha. So you can shoot it if based off of the landowner's request. You can shoot as many as you can get your gun on and shoot accurately.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
And it's after your studies, do you feel like the management of the farms that you're hunting are done correctly, or have you ever had a disagreement with the landowner?
No. I was left actually up until the landowner here where I stalk became interested in deer stalking. I was solely responsible for whatever I wanted to do on the land. So I always did it as a proper management way, and I tried to shoot as many days as I could. I shot any yearling bucks that were inadequate that would go on to produce a poor trophy. Any old animals that had come to the end of their reasonably productive life, then I would shoot, and anything that was good I just left.
Okay.
So it was just to promote, even though we don't have paying clients, it was just to promote a quality deer.
Gotcha. So it was you have your selections of the ones that you want to harvest out of the group and leave the other ones to breed more, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, the only way when you're doing population control, the only way to control a population is shoot does or hinds. Gotcha. So if you're looking to keep, as I said, sort of, if you had 1,000 acres and you want 200 on there, then you're going to have to shoot 100 deer each year because there's 100 deer produced.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. Now, you said you're using a high-powered rifle.
Yes.
Any bow hunting being done as well?
No, bow hunting's illegal in the UK.
Really? Oh, fascinating. How about that, Dusty?
So. That's unbelievable, really.
Bow hunting is illegal in the UK. Now, why is that?
Here we go.
I like stories that start out with "Here we go."
Here we go. That's a good indicator right there.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, let's get into that.
It's not deemed adequate enough to properly kill deer, really. I presume both of you are bow hunters. I know you do use rifles, etc., or shotguns.
Right.
But, the variants are so vast on everything being successful all the time that it was just... I think it would have been 1981 when the Countryside and Wildlife Act came in on various things and laws were changed. That it would have been made illegal. I think I may be wrong on that, but it's yeah. I mean, I know you guys over there love bow hunting and fanatical about it, but if you listen to people who bow hunt a lot, they also do wound quite a few and lose quite a few, and it was just deemed unacceptable, really.
Gotcha. So you wanted to make sure that it was either 100% kill or no kill or no attempt at all, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, even in rifle, let's face it, I've shot hundreds of deer. I've probably lost 4 or 5.
Right.
And you wonder what on earth went wrong. I mean, I remember neck shooting a doe and thinking she had rolled backwards down the ditch and that was that. But I just creased her neck and was enough of a blow to knock her out. Because a couple of seconds later, she was up and running again. There's little things like that go wrong. You can misplace a shot. You don't know you bumped the scope on your gun, on your rifle.
Right.
You can never be 100% sure, even with a rifle. But you're 99% sure as long as you're adequate to shoot that rifle.
Right.
So yeah, bow hunting. It was just also a lot of poachers use crossbows. So deer stalkers or even members of the public would often find dead deer or dying deer with a crossbow bolt stuck in them.
Gotcha.
And because there wasn't that tradition of bow hunting here, it's really out of favour with the UK lawmakers, but also the deer stalkers. I mean, if you started on a forum a thread about bow hunting, in the end there'd be that much fighting between the 90% of people who don't want to see it and the 10% of people who would be interested in it, that the moderators will just come down and shut it down.
I see. Okay.
It's a really taboo subject.
It sounds like a touchy subject. Wow.
But you see, I look at, guys like yourselves, and, we have great mutual friends in Mike and Danny on the Up North Journal.
Right.
And, I know how passionate they are about it, and I know how respectful they are about it. And they wouldn't want to see a wounded animal, and I'm okay with that. It's not something I personally would want to do.
I can understand that. I never want to take a bad shot. I want to, if I try to shoot an animal, I want a dead animal. That's it. There's no in between.
I mean, I try to neck shoot everything as well.
Okay.
So one, it's neck shooting means it is down on the ground dead, and two, because we also have sound suppressors on our rifles here. They don't hear that loud crack of a rifle. The animal drops straight away, so the rest of the group isn't so sure what's going on, and it means on a management thing, you can start having a second and a third shot.
Right.
No kidding. Interesting. It looks like the ban, Matt. It looks like the ban on archery in the UK has been banned since 1965.
Has it really?
Yes. That's just doing an internet search.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, that's when a lot of our up until the 60s, there were no laws governing deer. So you didn't have to have a specific rifle caliber or weight of bullet. There were no real seasons, and a lot of them were shot on vermin drives.
Really? So this was so the whole
up until the 60s.
Deer hunting, the whole idea of deer hunting in its current form is really brand new in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in a way, yes. You still had people who took a lot of traditions from Europe or elsewhere that did go out with high-powered rifles and did it properly like that, but there were no laws governing it until the 60s.
Fascinating. That's very interesting, considering the long tradition of history that England has. You'd think that they would have adopted something much sooner than that. But I guess it all comes down to your the whole idea of your government and the arguments and all that kind of stuff.
No, it is very surprising.
Yeah. What are gun laws like in the UK?
I think they're pretty good, personally.
Okay.
You have to apply to the police for a shotgun certificate or a firearm certificate. So the firearms are rifles.
Okay.
You go through background checks. You go through your general practitioner medical checks. You have to have a couple of referees that have known you for 2 years or longer and are not family members. If you are of sound mind and you are someone who keeps your nose clean and out of trouble, there is no reason why you won't be granted anything. And if you have land to shoot over, if you're a member of a clay pigeon shooting club, if you're a member of a rifle club, again, you have a reason to own a firearm or shotgun. There's no reason why they won't grant you it.
Okay. Very interesting. So if you're a foreigner, can you come and hunt on some of these properties?
Yeah, I mean, you could come over with me and you would hunt without any money, any monetary cost to you whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah, as long as you're sat with me, you use my rifles, you're under my guidance.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't need your own separate permit. That would be under
you.
No,
nothing. No. There used to be the game license for pheasant shooting, which was $8 a year, which I don't think is in effect anymore. As far as that, there are no licenses or tags. It is all about being able to own a rifle and have land to shoot over.
Interesting. So you could legitimately go deer hunting in England if I'm friends with you and you needed to do some management hunting.
Yep, if you all you have to do is get on a plane and get over here, and that's it.
That's awesome.
I will be there tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
no,
I'm just kidding.
We'll get all the baby crap off the spare bedroom, and you're free to come over.
There you go. Excellent.
That's probably one of the coolest things I've heard, that you can just jump a plane, fly over, and hunt.
go deer hunting in England.
Yeah,
that's the greatest thing ever.
That's the greatest thing ever.
I love that.
I mean, obviously, if you guys, not knowing me, you would have to book through a guide service and Deer Stalker, etc.
Right.
But if you know someone like me, then you just rock up and kick off.
That is
Matt,
fascinating.
I'm going to ask you what kind of rifles, caliber, and make and model are you shooting?
I have a 20-year-old Bruno 243. That was the first rifle I ever bought. That has a Leisenfeld 8x56 on top of it and a T8 reflex moderator on it. And I also have another Bruno, which is the same model as the 243 in 308, and that has a Nikon Pro, whatever it was, 3x9x50 on it. And I haven't put a silencer on that one yet.
No kidding.
The 243 shoots 100 grains, and the 308 is shooting at the moment 125, but I will put it up to 150 for some of the bigger red stags and Sika stags.
Wow.
How far do you have to travel to hunt the red stag?
If I wanted to go and see him, even though he's a professional stalker, so I'd have to pay him, I'm an hour away to go on the red stags.
Gotcha.
But if not into Scotland, would be probably cheaper. But yeah, we actually this winter had the first red stag turn up that must have followed one of the motorways or the only way he could have really done, and found it onto one of my trail cameras.
Ooh.
It's a young spiker, or you would call it a spiker, and we call it a pricket or a spiker. Yeah, he turned up in October, hung around for 2 weeks, then disappeared.
Uh-huh.
So he's probably wandered along a motorway or highway, as you call them, along the fence line during the rut, and he probably travelled 20, 30 miles.
Wow.
Gotcha. So that must have excited you a little bit when you saw that.
It did, yeah. I mean, because you see, if he had walked out anywhere around here, he's going to get shot.
Right.
So I would have shot him, because it is a bit of a unique thing. We don't have red deer locally.
Right.
So for the next 5 mornings, 5 nights, I was in that area, and he never showed.
Right. Hoping for that glimpse of him.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So is there a season that is more prominent than others, and what time of year would it be if it was?
Right. If you go in England, bucks and stags are shot from August through till the end of April.
Okay.
The hinds or does are the 1st of November until the end of March. And then you have roebuck, which are different to the rest of the male species, is that where would the red fallow, Sika, etc., cast their antlers through the spring, regrow them in velvet through the summer, and then become hard antler in the late autumn, roebucks actually grow theirs through the winter.
Interesting. So it's almost the reverse.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're a summer stalking animal. So you shoot them from the 1st of April onwards.
Wow.
Until the last day of October. So technically here, we can hunt all year round.
I was just about to say that. You can hunt deer all year round.
Yes.
Just you have to vary the species a little bit based off of what's going on with the mating seasons.
Yes.
And the antler growth. Wow, that's cool. That is fascinating. Well, that is good to know. I'm going to have to put that in my bank of things to do in my life before I kick it. Now, what's your favorite Scotch to drink with venison?
Oh, well, there's some of the Glenmorangies and Glenfiddichs. The Glenlivet that I bought the other day that was on special offer was quite nice. But at the moment, I'm into your bourbons. Interesting.
Now, which bourbons are you liking?
Well, at the moment, I'm sat next to me is a bottle of Jim Beam White.
Okay.
I do like the Wild Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And what else have we had? Have you tried the Jim Beam Devil's Cut?
I have. Yes.
That's quite good.
There's quite a few Jim Beams. Oh, there aren't many Jim Beams I haven't tried. Let's put it that way.
I haven't done any of the maples or the honeys or whatever else.
I think Matt fit right in the States.
I think I'd fit right in the UK. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, there's an open invitation for the pair of you. If you want to come out here, then, all you've got to do is get on that plane.
Wow.
Awesome.
I love that. That just made my day, Matt.
it definitely I think it made my year, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, come and shoot deer through the day, and we'll go fox calling through the night.
That'd be awesome. Matt, same for you. If you want to try to hunt a state's whitetail here in Ohio, anytime, brother, you just let me know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, same here. And do you have turkeys in?
No, we don't.
Oh, wow.
No, only farm birds. I mean, they're a North American bird, so.
Right.
But I mean, the odd gamekeeper does like to have a bit of fun sometimes and release the odd strange bird. So I do know of a turkey that's been shot on a pheasant shoot, and that wasn't called in strutting like you guys. That was 40 yards high and flying like hell.
No good.
That could be an interesting hunt for you then to hunt some turkeys and.
Yeah. I'm getting more into it, I think, the idea of it. I mean, I used to rib Mike Adams a lot about it and tell him that, they're nothing but a glorified chicken, really, are they?
Right.
But no, I do understand the calling of them and their eyesight and everything else that goes into it.
Yeah, it is kind of a fun hunt. There's no question about it. And there's a lot of interaction. Much like what I would imagine elk hunting being like, which I haven't done yet, but at some point I will.
Yes.
And now Mike Adams is known to us as the Godfather here.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that you're ribbing on him a little bit, and because he's got quite a few podcast shows ahead of all the other people that have joined on with the podcast channel. So I'm glad. Keep that up. Don't back down. Just keep sticking Mike now and then. That would be most appreciated.
Oh, I've been doing this for 5 years now.
Good.
I mean, this is a family show. Otherwise, I'd be a lot worse.
This is true.
Hey, Matt, what kind of camouflage are you guys using there?
Well, you have all the mossy oaks and Realtree, everything else. To be honest, it doesn't really make any odds to us. I will shoot in a tweed jacket. I will shoot in a plain green jacket. Deer see in monochrome. So camouflage, I don't think really makes too much of a bother or a difference. A lot of camouflage, I honestly believe, is like a fly to a fly fisherman. Some of them are produced just to catch the hunter.
I agree to that.
I agree with you on that 100%.
There are no doubt there are some patterns. I ribbed Mike about it. We know that the Up North Journal is sponsored by Mossy Oak, so I always try and give him a hard time about Realtree. But some of the mossy oak patterns, and they do look really nice, and they do blend in beautifully.
Right.
But if you have that, if you're early season and there's still leaf on the tree that's green, if you have a lightish green, then it blends in well. And then as the winter gets darker and you use a more darker coat, I don't feel it matters too much.
Okay. And do you end up playing the wind solely and not worrying about scent cover or scent elimination, that kind of thing?
No, it's non-existent over here. One of our leading stalking catalogs, online catalogs, ran it for one issue. They're a quarterly publication. They did all the American scent controls and everything else, and they stopped after one issue because no one bought it.
Okay. So it becomes just a spot.
On the wind.
Spot and stock and use the wind to your advantage.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing as well is where you have a lot of public access, deer can become slightly used to a bit of human scent. So if you're in the more remote areas, wind is everything. You've got to hunt the wind.
Okay.
Whereas some of them, if they're used to seeing people walk by with their dogs and they can stand in cover and just watch them, as long as the people don't stop and carry on walking, they'll just stay calm and relaxed and stay there.
Right.
I mean, you probably don't realize how many deer you walk past.
This is true.
Very much. If you don't, Roberta is from when we first met, my other half. She now spots a lot more deer because she's looking for them. Beforehand, 8 years ago, she would have walked past a lot of deer if we were out with the cameras,
right,
because she just wouldn't see them. And that's how most deer look at people. They haven't seen me, so I'll just stand here and let them pass by.
Right.
Of course, that will all change if you've got a rifle in your hand.
Of course.
That's what Murphy's Law is.
Yeah. No, they can sense the rifle and they
Absolutely.
disappear. Yep. Wow, Matt, this has been just mind-filling podcast. We're exploring things we've never heard before, and that's why I like to get out and about a little bit and talk to people that experience other parts of the country and the world. And this is right up our alley. It's such a different show compared to what we're used to. So I deeply appreciate you joining us and explaining what hunting is like in England. Just kind of expanded our world quite a bit.
It's an absolute pleasure to sit down and talk to you, Jay and Dusty. I'm sure you could probably do a follow-up with other aspects. You're probably both fishermen, so
yes. Yep.
There's a variety of fishing that goes on here that doesn't go on there, and then the game shooting worlds. I mean, we view shooting squirrels as vermin, whereas to you have your squirrel hunting seasons,
right?
Whereas we can shoot squirrel all year round. Because our squirrels are your North American grey squirrel.
Right, right.
So
Gotcha. There's
so many different species, and duck hunting as well. We love our wildfowl hunting. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, it's surprising. There's a lot. We are very similar in many aspects, but very different in a lot of others.
Right. It just sounds like a great world to live in, for sure.
It can be.
Absolutely. One last thing I want to touch base on, Matt, is you talked about being able to buy venison at the market.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Well, because we are landowner controlled in the numbers we shoot, obviously, if I go and shoot, let's say a weekend, I had 2 friends that we shot 17 one weekend. That's a lot of venison, and that would need a lot of freezer space. So we can openly buy and sell all of our game, which is all of our deer, all of our game birds, and our waterfowl, except for geese, to a game dealer who will then either be someone who sells it on still in fur or in feather or in fin, or if they're a big processing plant, then they will then process it and start selling it to pubs and restaurants and farmers markets, etc. And the prices you get fluctuate. At the moment, the venison prices are quite good. We're getting about £1 a pound, so that's about $160 a pound of venison.
Right.
So if you can imagine, if you shoot a £100 beast, you're getting $160 back in your pocket.
Sounds like a good deal.
Great deal.
A brace of pheasants might be worth $4 to $6,
Okay.
and a pigeon might be worth 50 cents.
All right.
I mean, we shoot pigeons in the millions over here. So
Really?
But yeah. So you can buy and sell. You have to sell game. You have to be a registered game dealer.
Okay.
But yes, no, because of the numbers we shoot and we're not stuck to tags and limits, then you can obviously openly sell your game.
So you can almost make a living off of game off the game market.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are hundreds, literally, of stalkers out there who have built up enough permission to stalk many species throughout the year. So they take clients out, like your guided elk hunts or guided whitetails, and make money through the clients, and then make money through the venison sales, and actually do that as a full-time living.
That is fascinating.
That's living a dream.
To think that, I mean, you can't really do that in the United States, free range like that. That is fascinating. What a way to deal with your game that you've actually harvested. That's just amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. There's only one tiny little downside, which has affected me personally, is that you also, because you can sell animals, the carcasses, the beasts, I'm afraid that you do have those people out there who shoot for money.
Sure, and I can see that. That could be a problem.
Yeah, whereas I, for instance, on the farm I shoot over, I have taken dozens of bucks, but they've all been rubbish, apart from 2 or 3 over that 18-year period.
Okay.
Whereas we now have very few good bucks about, because people have shot them, not necessarily for the antler for the wall, because Essex doesn't produce really great trophies, but because of the size of the carcass.
Okay.
So our buck population is dwindling. So that is one downside of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But no matter what you do in life, you're always going to have that bad egg.
Absolutely.
You can't get away from that.
That's
so.
part of the deal. How do you like to prepare your venison for dinner or a meal?
My favourite would be what we call the stalker's fillet, which is the fillet on the inside of the backbone.
Okay.
Whether you call it your tenderloin.
Yep. Yep. Sure.
Right. Well, on a Muntjac, those are probably only about 4 inches long by 1 inch thick. So if you go in the morning, if you've gone out first light, shot a beast, then those would be very good for breakfast with bacon and egg. And then otherwise, otherwise your standard slow roast.
Okay.
But I mean, venison is so versatile. You could make it into burgers venison sausages are just superb.
Right. Yeah, you can do a lot with it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, Matt, is there a book that you would recommend to the listeners of the show? Is there some kind of a deer hunting manual that you would use or have used to help bring you along a little further in your knowledge of the deer that are in your area?
Oh, my word. Just for you guys across there, a book on our deer. Not really, no. There are a lot of them. I mean, there is the Whitehead Encyclopedia of Deer, which covers every species of deer in the world.
Okay.
Which is a rather good read. I will recommend a book for your listeners, though, if you like turkey hunting.
Sure.
You must be familiar with a chap called Bobby Cole of Mossy Oak.
Sure.
Well, he wrote 2 books. One's called The Dummy Line, one's called Moon Underfoot. And they are brilliant.
Okay, very good.
The Dummy Line is brilliant. Buy yourself a good bottle of whiskey.
Yep.
Or bourbon, and sit down and read that on an evening.
Done. I am there. All right. And do you have anything you like to take into the field with you that, like, you almost feel naked with if you're in the field and you don't have it with you, other than your firearm, of course?
Binoculars.
Dusty.
Yeah. I'm surprised. This is not looking to bash anyone across the pond, but I'm surprised at how many people over there who don't take binoculars with them, who will view something through a scope.
Right.
Because you're looking at an unidentified target with a rifle.
Right. Now, I asked Dusty the same question, and he said binoculars too.
Hands down, I got to have it.
Right.
I'm naked without it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I being a big wildlife lover and do a lot of wildlife photography, it's not just about being out there and pulling a trigger. It's the whole experience and immersing yourself within that habitat and that ecosystem.
Very much so. I completely agree. Now, if you had one hunting tip to share with the world, what would that be?
Oh, I think hunt the wind.
Hunt the wind.
Yeah, you've got to. You're never going to beat evolution. The nose on a deer is just so fantastic. It's untrue. It's what keeps them alive.
Right.
And that goes for deer. That doesn't matter. We don't have coyotes or wolves or bears over here, but same with foxes.
Right.
If that's what you're going to hunt, if a wild animal wise lives on its instincts.
That's a great tip, and I think that's a universal one. You can do it anywhere in the world, and you'd still come out on top if you knew how to play the wind. Very much so.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Matt. This has been just an eye-opener. Dusty, would you agree that this is just something that has just opened my mind to other aspects of hunting?
I'm ready to book a flight, really.
I am too. I'm very much there. I think we'll let Matt get through the baby phase a little bit before we intrude upon his household, and he's already got enough to deal with. But, Matt, I think I will take you up on that somewhere in the near future because that...
Well, it would be a pleasure. It really would. I mean, there's a few of you guys across there that I speak to and talk to and everything else. And one day, whether Roberta and Eva and I come out, or whether it's just me, we will come out to the States. I have been over to the States, but
yep.
I was 12 at the time. I was actually based in Ohio.
There you go. Where Dusty is.
Yeah.
Ohio. Do you recall where at?
Cleveland.
Okay, yeah, so that's about 3 hours to me.
Right, we did through Tennessee as well, Kentucky, North Carolina, various places, and we also went up to Canada to see the falls. But again, I was only 12 at the time, so there wasn't a lot I could do about anything else. But yes, say you, Danny, and Michael. If
Michael too, you're gonna bring.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've got to say it, otherwise he'll feel like he's left out.
Okay, all right. I guess we can make the exception. We'll bring Mike too.
But yes, no. If you guys could ever make it out, then it would be a pleasure to take you out and show you a bit of England and sit down and have a beer with you.
That would be fantastic, and maybe whiskey.
Oh, very much so. Well, it's against the law not to.
That's what I heard. So this is right up my alley.
It's a shootable offence.
Excellent. Matt, this has just been an honor and a pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast.
Of course it is. It's been an absolute pleasure, chaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was an eye-opening experience.
Oh, my goodness. It's amazing. Could you imagine that many species of deer to go after, Jay?
And hunt deer all year round? That would be insane.
Wow.
Of course, they're not the whitetails that we're used to. But still, the aspect of hunting a deer with the agilities that they have and the mannerisms and the aspects and the way you hunt them with a high-powered rifle, spot and stock, dude, that's where it's at.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm down with that.
It's just amazing. Just think, Jay, we got invited to go hunt the UK.
We did. And if we do this and we go, we got to take the Godfather and Danny, and we got to go and film the whole thing because you know that it's just going to be a slapstick comedy the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Along with some great hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be a fantastic time.
With the way that Matt beats up on the Godfather, yeah. Sorry, Mike. We have to do that. And, of course, we'll let Matt kind of get things under control in his household with his new baby. But once that's done, I think we need to have a serious conversation about heading to England to do some deer hunting.
Absolutely.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
How about a Chubby Tines tip of the week, Dusty? Do you have one for us?
I do. You know, we got hunt season, whitetails in particular. You know, we like to talk about whitetails and big bucks here on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. It's just a few months away. It is the time to get your camo out, get it cleaned up, washed up, do whatever you need to do to get it ready. And it's time to start thinking about killing that scent on it. You know, it's set around, all spring, and now we're into the summer. It's time to start thinking about that kind of stuff.
What would you recommend we start doing right now to start thinking about scent?
You know, it varies for different areas and different terrain. And, you know, right now I go out and just take a pair of nippers and cut off some cedar limbs. And I take a toter box, which is a plastic toter box, and I throw the cedar right in there with my camouflage.
That's cool. I like that. That makes sense. Is there anything else besides that you start prepping for, or you just get there first?
Yeah, I like to focus on my scent right now. Just getting that ready, and you know, obviously it's food plot time and other things, but right now my focal point's getting on that scent control.
Okay.
Start early, and you won't have to worry when it comes time.
Right. Excellent. Very good, man. Thanks again to Matt Goodlife for sharing with us all those little aspects of the UK and hunting deer that would you have known that if we hadn't talked to Matt?
Absolutely not.
Would you have even thought about it, really?
Nope, I sure wouldn't. No.
But it's awesome. It's a enlightening experience for me to understand what else goes on in the world of deer hunting.
It really is. Just
loved it. So thanks again to Matt. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not on the mic?
Facebook.com/Chubby Gobbler. Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can also shoot me an email at dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Jay, where can the people find you at when you're not on the mic?
Well, first and foremost, if you are listening to this show on an iDevice, like an Apple device, I would sincerely appreciate if you would go to the search bar and type in Big Buck Registry Podcast. And once you get there, leave us a review. We really need those reviews to get up in the rankings, and it just it helps to get this show promoted, because the higher up in the rankings you are, the more people see it, and the more people see it, the better off we're going to be spreading the word about hunting and how hunting is a good thing. And try to defeat those antis. As far as getting a hold of us, you can shoot us an email, Jay or Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. Twitter is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. If you'd like to get your buck featured on our Facebook page and get shown to the world of deer hunting, it's bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. If you would like to donate to the show, bigbuckregistry.com/pledge or bigbuckregistry.com/donate. Give us a call at 724-613-2825. Leave us a message. Tell us a story about a deer hunt you were on, or if you have some feedback about the show, things you like, things you don't like, that would be most appreciated. And I think that is it. Did I cover it?
I think so.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. See you next week.
Can't wait.